I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome everyone back to the Do Hard Things podcast with your hosts, Gabe and Lexi. Today's guest is the sales world's loudest truth teller and one of the boldest disruptors, and it's Keenan. He is the CEO of a sales growth company, the best-selling author of Gap Selling, and the creator of problem-centric selling. It's a framework that's helped thousands of teams ditch the pitch and start selling real change. He's coached CROs, VPs of sales, and sellers at some of the biggest and fastest growing companies out there. But he doesn't show up to repeat best practices. He shows up to blow them up. Whether he's on stage, on LinkedIn, or bombing black diamonds, Keenan comes with full send energy. And he's not here to make you feel good about what you're doing. He's here to make you better. Keenan, welcome to the show. Listen, you are the guy who skis through moguls, but you actually are a mogul as well. Before you hit the black diamonds, right? You got the book, you got a massive following. Where did this all start? Like what is your origin story?
I've always been like this. So I didn't get a real job. And I just partied until I was 27. I was in no rush. Right. And I finally was all right, I got to get a job. And so I got a job in sales. And my career went from selling chamber memberships for $16,000 base and $50,000 at plan. And then 3 years later, I was running a $300 million line of business with 125 salespeople in telecom across the entire United States. So my career took off. But then it started to plateau. So that telephone company I was working with, Telephony, we sold all the managed modem services for dial-up. Lexi, you're too young to remember this. Right? When you got on the internet, it used to go right on AOL and shit. And that was basically every one of those had a phone line. So we provided those phone lines to cable and wireless, AOL, etc. So when that went under, I had a hard time maintaining my position because my resume was 3 sentences long. Party till I'm 27, sell chamber memberships, and then run a 300-person business. Oh, and then I sold IT consulting services. That was it, right? So fast forward to 2009, I got tired of taking 6 months to a year to find a job if I ever needed a job. So I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a blog. And I'm going to write how to manage sales teams, how to grow sales teams, how to develop sales teams, how to build processes. I did all that. Did it every single day for 2 years. And that's how it blew up. And then people started reaching out. And so I had to switch jobs again. We got bought by a foreign entity and they let us all go in the US, and I had one choice. Spend 6 months to a year finding another IT job, another job in working for the man, or start a consulting firm and reach out to some of the people who had asked me if I do consulting. So I said, screw it. I'll spend that 6-8 months betting on myself. So I have a t-shirt that says bet on yourself. And it worked. And ever since then, that's where I am.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I've seen it all over LinkedIn about people wanting to give up, that it's never too late to change your career path. And I know you've been in sales one way or another, but have there ever been a moment where you almost walked away from sales and what
No,
brought you back?
no, no, no. Look, it's not even sales. I'll say this: if you come to something where you almost walk away from a how do I put this? From a industry, or like if you're in sales or you're an engineer or an artist, not the company. You can walk away from companies every day. But what you do, if you almost come to a point where you're going to walk away, 99% of the time you should have walked away because it shouldn't have been what you wanted to do. At no time did I ever think I didn't want to get into sales or run businesses, whatever, right? So if I did, that means probably I shouldn't have wanted to be there. 100%. No, not ever once.
Now, obviously, you're bold, you're direct, and you're unapologetic, and that's what people love about you. And right now, I'm seeing you talk a lot about rejecting traditional sales, right? When did you really first realize that just the status quo isn't and doesn't work?
Well, I'd love to give you a little soundbite that sounds good and um, fits on a little pinhead, but it wasn't like that. It was this little things over time, right? So I guess there's a couple like big ahas. The very, very first time I had my first sales job, I told you, was at the Chamber of Commerce, and I had to sell chamber memberships, right? They cost like 400. Well, the cheapest one was like 325, and the most expensive one was 10 grand, right? This is a 95. So that's 10 grand back in 95 was a lot of money, right? I mean, and then to small businesses, 325 was. So anyways, I'm off track. I remember I'd never sold a day formally in my life. I got hired because it was a friend. I was a good interviewer, but I was kicking everybody's ass. And my boss brought me into his office and he was like, "Where did you learn to consultatively sell?" I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" And he goes, "You're a consultative seller." And I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Because so logically, it just made sense to me that I just can't say, buy my Advil, buy my Advil, it's great Advil, da, 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 da. It, like logically, it didn't make sense. I was like, "Yo, man, like talk to me. How often do you get a headache? And what can't you do?" And it just was logical to me. So anyway, that's the first time I knew I did it different. Then when I started the consulting firm and I was working with a lot of reps, one of the things I found was every single thing in the CRM, what's the word I'm looking for? Not addition, but input, whatever word I'm looking for, in the CRM sounded the same, was a piece of shit. And I was like, so basically, you have no idea why this buyer should buy. Have absolutely no idea. Well, they need our Advil. Why? I don't know. Well, why do you think they need it? Well, because we get rid of headaches. Do they have a headache? They must, because they're buying Advil. Well, could their kid have a headache? Could they have just gone out of surgery? Could they need to do it to act as a slight blood thinner? Are they doing it for anti-inflammation? Like, oh, I don't know. Right. So I realized these fuckers don't have a clue. Like literally don't have a clue. So that was the second one. And then after I wrote the book and I stumbled across the problem identification chart, then it really all cemented. It's like nobody understands the problems they solve. And so when you don't understand the problems you solve, you can't actually sell to those problems very well because, and you can't even find them. If you don't know what you sell, how do you find them in discovery, right? Then once you find them, if you're lucky enough to find one, like every squirrel gets a nut, how do you understand the root causes? Like how do you diagnose what the root causes of that is, and how do you diagnose what the impact is if you don't know? So once I figured out the companies didn't know how to do that, it all became crystal clear. We're doing this backwards. We're product centric, pushing features, like all that bullshit. And we're not actually helping buyers understand the problems they're trying to solve, which then puts you in the position of being a credible resource and a problem solver. Because that's all buying is. I want to buy something. They're raising their hand. They're saying, I have a problem. That's all it is.
Yep. Love it.
Definitely. I love how you have such a different twist on everything. It's great. And you often say people don't buy products, they buy outcomes. What's the biggest mistake you think sellers make when chasing the outcome?
Oh, and chasing the outcome. Interesting. I think that's an interesting question. I don't know if I could have answered this yesterday because it's not top of mind. Really good work. I was working with one of the salespeople of our clients just today, and he's gone through the whole gap selling concept and watching him transition. It's pretty cool. And so he's focused on the problems, but the customer said they had a certain environment, and he told them what that problem could be and the outcome of that problem could be. And then he said, so if you ever experience that, keep us in mind. And I was like, whoa, stop. You can't tell them. You have to ask them. So the minute you heard that environment existed, right? The minute you heard that environment existed, you don't say, oh, this could happen. You say, hey, because of that, are you seeing you're paying more for these things than you'd prefer? Didn't even dawn on them to ask the question. And that's what most salespeople do. They don't think to ask the question, don't think to diagnose. They're quick to tell. And when you start telling, you miss amazing opportunities, because just to play this one out, it was for an MSP, and they had 3 separate vendor partners for 3 separate parts of their business: VoIP, security, and managed services. And I said, now, and they had just said they went under contract. Now, I don't know that this would be the case, but this is the power of gap selling. I said, what would have happened if you asked her that? And she said, yes. And then you said, would you mind showing me how much more you feel you're paying, or why you feel it's too much? And she said, well, across the 3, I paid 10 grand. It's a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And let's just say your service, because they can do all 3 of them. Let's say our service only costs $4,000 or $5,000 a month or $6,000 a month, right? So now we're cheaper, right? By 3 grand to do it all. So then you could say, let me ask this next question. I know you just signed a 3-year contract. However, is there a penalty for getting out early? I said, oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think it's like 15 grand. So like, wait a minute, you're paying 3 grand or more a month for 3 years. You have a 15-year clause. It would actually be cheaper for you to get out of that and go with us. Does it make sense to keep talking? But he didn't get to do any of that because he told her. He didn't ask her. So that's the point. They tell people what their outcomes. They don't try to figure out what those outcomes are from the buyer's perspective.
Here's my follow-up to that. Why do you think that is? Because, right now there's so many bad managers out there that are just training this, and it's like cyclical, right? I'm getting on demos of companies that are, selling to me, and I don't know if it's, the Zoom world we're living in, but they're not prepared. They're not asking the questions. They're just showing the deck that, they're just going through the motions. The follow-up isn't there. I don't even get emails sometimes. And I just have fun with it because I ask them questions to like do this, and this, and next steps, and I get nothing. And so like, why do you think, here's my question. What's the hardest truth right now that, most reps are just really not wanting to hear? Because I feel like they should know this stuff, right? There's so much available to them. They can read your book. They can see all this stuff. They can, go on YouTube and learn about all this stuff. And they're just not, it's just not happening.
Okay. So that's a big question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to pare it down.
That's why we brought you. You're the man. We want to hear from the horse's mouth. What's going on here, man? I don't get it.
So one is the history. Hold on. Let me make sure I write these down. Okay. One is the history and the culture. So I'm going to combine those 2.
Okay.
The history and culture of sales. Oh, yep. That's the other one. Hold on. Sorry. The history and culture of sales has been one of telling. And it's embedded in, at least in Western culture, right? You see that guy who comes in and they talk really well and they're really savvy and like, ooh, you're a consummate salesman. You're a born salesman, right? We have this concept, this idea, this premise that a salesperson is a teller, right? And they're pitching a product. I mean, Advil's getting all kinds of love today, right? They're pitching a product. That's what we see as a salesperson. You add to that this culture that a salesperson is supposed to drive revenue. And they got to sell, close deals, top tail, President's Club, mass amounts of quota, making big commission checks. We still have some of these clowns out there who are in our space who sell their services by saying how much commission you're going to make, right? You're going to make all this commission, right? So we have this really old school mentality that is just so ingrained and has been so ingrained for at least 60 years. I'm going to start in 1960 with, was that knucklehead? I guess 60, 70, almost 73 years, something like that, right? 75, it's 1960, 75. So it took me a minute, bad at math, right? I'll just start with Sandler, somewhere in there. So that's half of it. You combine that with a culture of trying to drive sales at all costs, and it is perceived that pushing a product is the fastest way to get a sale, right? That's the perception. So many people, when they first get exposed to gap selling, they're like, that's going to extend the sales cycle. That's going to make things longer. You're spending so much time up front asking all these questions. You don't even get to the product. We got to go, 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 go. And they just believe it. It's fundamentally inherent to the way these people think. So when something is that ingrained and it's that established, it's hard to get out of. You add on top of that layer that's how every manager and manager's manager and manager's manager has been taught and what they've gone through. Now they've gone through iterations. Sales come out and social selling, not social, solution selling's come out, and you got challenger sale, which I actually kind of like where that did a few shit. Spin selling did a phenomenal job early. They just didn't finish the job because they were still focused out of the seller's mindset, not the buyer's mindset. So you had little iterations of it, but it all is the same thing with a different word, right? It's not like the word pain, find the pain. No, man, it's not about the pain. It's about the problem. There's a real difference between pain and problem. So all of that is just sort of putting pretty packages around the same concept with admittedly a few advances, a few elements to sort of make it consultative and ask some good questions, but it just doesn't do, you know what it was like? It was like we finally discovered surgery. Yep. With surgery, we're going in, we're fixing shit in the inside and we're sewing it up, but we don't have antibiotics and we don't have fucking, what's that stuff? Anesthesia. So, okay, it's better. It's not very good because you have to get surgery without antibiotics, without anesthesia, and you're as good as fuck. So it's sort of like that. And then the last one is the psychology. Just from a psychological perspective, we think in terms of outcomes. So I just did a post, or two posts actually, on LinkedIn. I asked, what business problems do you solve? I ask this question all the time with all due respect to you, Gabe. Your team failed it. Everybody fails it. They start with, we help companies. We provide this. We enable this, and put in whatever the thing it is, right? We enable people to stop losing this, or we enable people to do X, Y, Z. Those aren't problems. That is not a problem. That is an outcome. That is a tool. That is a solution. Very few people start with, we, in your case, Gabe, which is perfect for you, we work with companies, or we help companies who have low win rates. We fix companies who are struggling with long sales cycles. Do you see that? I'm not talking about my product. I'm not talking about what I do. It's really identifying what exists in a company before I show up. And that's why they need me. But we don't think that. We psychologically think the other way, right? I make headaches go away. Well, that's, I make headaches go away. Okay, but what's the problem? The problem is they can't get through their day because they have a headache. The problem is they're stuck in bed all day. The problem is they're not effective in their job. That's the problem. The root cause, they have a headache. You make the headache go away, great, but what's the problem?
Love it.
That wasn't too concise. Sorry, bro.
No, I love it. That's why we're here. We got all the time in the world.
All right, dog.
Well, social platforms are filled with people who talk a big game, and then you find out they don't actually deliver on what they're talking about. They talk the talk, but not walk the walk. And you work with many elite teams. What separates those who close the gap versus those who just talk about it?
At the fundamental level. So I'm not going to say who does and doesn't do this because I'm not in their organizations. But to me, it's the processes and the frameworks. So when I say that, we solve the problem of low win rates and we're really good at it, if you can push me as far as you want, and I will have a process or framework that is built on some sort of premise. So I come up with the premise, then I build the framework or the process to engage that premise to drive to addressing the root cause, to solving the problem, right? So that's where the pick chart came up. Now think about this for a second. I don't really think I'm the smartest guy in the world, right? If you put me under a therapist, you go, this guy's insecure and he's battling all kinds of childhood issues, right? But the pick chart should have been invented 50 years ago. So for those of you wondering what the pick chart is the problem identification chart. And we do not let any of our clients go to market with their sales team until the pick chart is built. And what that basically means is we work with teams, and it's crazy. It can take up to 6 hours sometimes, which you wouldn't think it would do, to build this. And what it means, it's 3 columns. Everybody imagine 3 columns: problem, impact, root cause. So the first thing we do is we force companies to say, okay, what are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 problems, business problems you solve? Then once we identify those, and oh, by the way, there are never more than 6 or 7. I think I have one outlier who had 8, but I don't care what you sell, you never solve more than 4 or 5 on average. Look at a bell curve, it's almost right in there, about 4, okay? Some of those less, only 2 or 3, some a little more, but mostly 4. Then we say, what are the impacts of those business problems to an organization if those business problems exist. We spent a lot of time going through those. Those can be infinite, but we try to, again, bell curve, try to get the most common ones. Then we go to root causes. What are the root causes that exist in an organization that create those business problems which drive those impacts? Now, here's the key piece. Root causes are broken processes or tools. So if my pen stops working, if it takes me too long to get to work, if I don't have visibility, if my manufacturing conveyor keeps breaking down, all of that, which is what traditionally salespeople sell to, all of that are root causes. So then I'm start saying, well, if you fix conveyor belts from breaking down, which is great, root cause, what's the business problem? Right? Now, the business problem can be unplanned downtime. Unplanned downtime, what's the impact of that? It affects operating costs. It could cause you to lose your customers because you can't deliver the products on time. You see where I'm going with this? So when you have this whole thing built out and you teach it to your sales team and you stick their nose in it and make them understand it like a dog who's shitting in the living room, right? They memorize that. And then when they're doing the discovery, they know where they're going now. They understand the relational elements of, oh, this is happening, this root cause. I just heard that, which means, ooh, they must be having this problem. Let me define that problem. Ooh, if they're having this problem, I bet this is the impact. And when you get all of that, then you can start selling. So my point in this is all the way back to your question about how you differentiate. That's a framework. That's a process. And I still can't believe after 50 years, no one thought about starting with, let's teach the team the problems we solve, the impacts and the root causes so they can go out and find them. We can do a better job at solving them. No one's ever done. This is a perfect example. If they don't have tons of processes, we've created the speed model. Okay, another process in sales enablement. So we have a million processes and tools and frameworks that understand the premise of the problem, why it exists, and how we fix it. So that's a really long answer, but I hope it helped.
No, absolutely. Like let's switch gears here, like on legacy and purpose, because you have built an amazing brand, obviously, and it's loud, it's bold, it's authentic. You said you just admitted you've been doing this for a while, right? So what keeps you showing up every day for sales after all this time? Why is this driving you so much, and you're so passionate about it? It's infectious. What is that behind? What's behind all of this?
I think the first thing is just who I am. So I don't do anything I don't like. I just can't. That's why I was terrible in school, especially middle school and high school. Like I knew I was going to be a doctor, so I didn't give a fuck. It's like, I don't need all A's. I hate this. I don't want to do this. The minute I thought it was interesting, I'd get an A. So if a teacher got me to see it interesting or beneficial, I was top of the class. But it was just because. So that's the first thing. It's just innate to me. I only do things that I want to do, that I find fun, etc. That's number one. Number two, I'm a fixer by nature. So it's funny, as I've gotten older, I read about relationships and all that because I'm very curious. So I read about everything. You start to learn that women sometimes just want to vent. Well, I'm a fixer. So if I'm dating someone or a girlfriend calls up, and she's just happened the other day, she calls up, she's having all this trouble with her son. She's talking. I'm like, okay, so what you got to do? And I go, wait. I'm sorry. Let me step back. Did you call because you wanted to vent, or did you call because you wanted me to help fix it? Right? I literally stopped and said this. No, I need a fixer. I'm like, okay, here's where we are. You want to vent? I'll go this route. So I am just a natural fixer. So every time I get a customer, every time someone calls up, every time someone says, hey, Keenan, help me with this, I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, let's roll up our sleeves and let's go fix. And I don't like to fix things half-assed. That's the other part of it. If we're going to do it, going to do that shit right. So then I start thinking, well, what does right mean? I'm like, oh my God. So right is way up here. So oh, that's a lot of work. So I better figure this out and I better get everything in place. And so it just dries on itself. And then I think the last one, it's just, I guess a little bit of my personality and a little bit of part of it. I just don't like to fail. Right. And so I just get after it. I guess it's those three things.
I love it.
Awesome. So they say family and the people who you surround yourself with really impact who you are and what motivates you. And I know you have 3 daughters. How did becoming a dad influence the way you lead, impact, and show up in business?
Maybe there is a subconscious element to how I show up in business. So we'll just assume that's the case. but consciously, my daughters had a huge impact on how I show up in life in general, particularly around social issues. In my training, I talk a lot about this concept of longevity bias and subconscious bias, and it's related to sales. I won't bother you with it, but I'm very, very, very familiar with the concept of subconscious bias. The idea was in America up until about 1975, 64, we signed the Civil Rights Act, but to 1975, most of racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia were just conscious. It wasn't hidden. Can we be honest here? Like, that's how it was in America, right? So it was very conscious. Then we decided, hey, that's not okay. Like, this isn't okay. All people are equal. We got to treat them equal. We got to live to the Constitution. We got to live to our creed. So we started saying, you can't go around saying that. But that didn't mean people's biases went away, right? That didn't go away. So I think over time, people started realizing, yes, I can't do this. I want to be equal, but we're still carrying subconscious bias around. So where am I going with this? I wanted boys. That's where I'm going with this. I was a football player. I was into sports. I was a bit aggro, got in a lot of college fights. Me and my buddy to this day would just, you can imagine my personality in college when I'm only 22, right? There was just a lot. And so I was like, we're boys. And my wife at the time was 6 feet tall. Her brother played football for CSU. My dad was 6'5". I'm 6'2". I'm like, I'm bringing monsters into the house. We're going to take over the world. Girl number one, girl number two. So I was like, oh, fuck, I got girls. So where am I going with this? One day I woke up and I said, why did I want boys so bad? And I wanted boys because I had this idea, subconscious bias, that a boy was tough, sports, rough and tumble, and a girl was pink and tea parties and dolls. All three of my girls were competitive skiers. We used to wrestle all the time when I was a kid. My oldest to this day, I still want to kill her. She would stand on the top of the couch when I wasn't looking and do a full-fledged wrestling blam on my back. It would hurt. I was like, what the? Right. The type of skiing they did was half pipe. She'd get 10 feet out of the pipe. My other two did mogul skiing. My youngest is still a competitive mogul skier and is on track to make the U.S. team. She's getting literally 15 feet in the air, landing and skiing at a mogul run. To this day, when we wrestle, sometimes I'm like, if I don't get man level on her, she will beat me. So then she starts crying. I'm like, I can't beat you being a soft dad anymore. So my point in this is I had a subconscious bias of what girls were. And when I finally recognized that and owned that as a man, I stopped treating my daughters differently. And then that forced me to be aware of what other subconscious biases am I going out into the world with. And when I feel something funny, whether it's around a woman or a gay person or a white older man, or I don't give a shit, I'm just throwing things out. And I get that feeling like, oh, they're an asshole. They make me uncomfortable. Whoa, stop. What is that? What is that about you, me, that is making me uncomfortable? Because not them, they haven't done a thing. They're just going about their lives. So why did I just feel uncomfortable? And I had to reconcile that myself. So the answer to that is my daughters helped me realize that I and everybody else bring shit to the table. We put that shit on other people. We apply that to them and then get angry with them when it's really about us.
Right. So I look at that as like a be, do, have, like what you become, you do, and then what you do, you have, right? So bringing that story into a sales team when you're coaching them and you're mentoring them, they have all this baggage. They have all the past experience. They have all the mentors that are not doing it the right way. How do you get through that? Because when you're a sales manager, a sales trainer, you feel almost like you're a therapist, right? And you have to take people through, right? Much more than just, hey, this is the words you say, and this is the script, and this is a rebuttal. Like, you got to get in people's heads because, if they don't break through that and lose the baggage that you had with your daughters, they're not going to get through what they need to get through to be a president's club, be a 6-figure earner, be a 7-figure earner, or be an owner one day. So how do you break through that? Is that part of your training? Is that part of your mantra when you're working with clients?
So usually the CRO, VP sales, sometimes or the sales enablement, they buy the training. We got them on board. So normally what happens is you have anywhere from 25 to 300 people that are going through it. And the way we do it is in small chunks, so it's very intimate. We don't have a giant room, so no one can hide. With very few exceptions, the way we do it is we do it by helping them see the value in it. So we do a lot of compare and contrast. So it's sort of like, you see when this happens, what do you think buyer's going to do? Like, oh, they're going to act that way. I'm like, exactly. When you do it this way, how do you think the buyer's going to? So what buyer reaction do you want, right? So we really break down the psychology of it. We help them we break down the framework and show them why the framework is in place. Like, in other words, what outcomes we're trying to drive. So it's sort of the premise is going to be a horrible metaphor, but if you want a car that goes really fast, and I explain to you how combustion works, and then I say, so if you have a really small cylinder or really big cylinder, which do you think will create more combustion and make it go faster? Well, the bigger cylinder. If you didn't know that, then you're struck. But once I tell you that, then it's a lot easier if we get you to agree that we should probably focus on making the cylinders not as big as possible. You get my point, right?
Yeah.
So it's just simply breaking down the underlying, in this case, physics. So that once they understand the physics and they realize, oh, I see how my actions were jacked. Oh, I see how my actions were good. And so by that logic, they can start to, for themselves, start to make the decisions they want to make themselves based on their outcomes.
Right.
Was that helpful?
100%. And going back to the psychology of people, I mean, we are in the people business. So when I'm training someone, it's always about, listen, throw all the scripts, throw all the tactics out the window. Why do people do things? What creates this specific personality type and people dynamics, and whether it's Myers-Briggs or DISC assessments, there's a ton of them that are out there. But I think teaching them the how, right, before the why, then they are actually, like to your point, when you were in school, you were interested, you got top A's because it actually excites you. And I think you get more motivated to learn when you know the why behind it before you learn the how behind it, right?
100,000%. Very well said. 100,000%. You should have answered the question for me. That was bad.
Well, you're the guest. So
that was good.
Let's talk. I mean, do you want to talk about Revenue Magazine? Because it's something that's awesome, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. Why did you see this initiative? What was the gap, and what are you trying to fill right now with Revenue Magazine? And like I said, I've been watching the articles. I'm super happy to be a contributor, but it's game changing right now, and it's really, really, really important.
So the reason we started it was we just felt more and more and more people were showing up on LinkedIn. I mean, justifiably so. I get why they do it. Sharing their sales beliefs. I mean, I guess if I followed different people, I'd have people talking about engineering or HR, but I'm in sales. So most of my feed is sales, right?
Right.
And it was just getting so loud, so noisy. And make it worse, LinkedIn is really starting to be like Facebook in Instagram in its squeezing of the algorithm, right? It's just harder and harder and harder, not only to be seen and get stuff, get your stuff out there, but to actually get other people's stuff. It's just really difficult. And no disrespect to a lot of the people out there trying to make a living and doing the thing. I just thought the quality was going down, 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 down. And so I wanted to create a place that was less noisy, and it was about the content, not about the promotion, right? It was about the content. So a place where people could go and learn and develop themselves as salespeople, sales leaders, etc., through some of the best in the industry without the stress or noise or BS about, who it is and they're trying to get you to buy something or trying to build a relationship and hit you up later. I just wanted it to be a place of content that made a difference.
Right. That's awesome. And I heard you have a new book coming out. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Yeah. Gap prospecting, baby. It's going to be fire. I'm excited. I shouldn't say that. I should just have the same attitude I had with Gap Selling. I hope it does well.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of sales going? I know you're seeing a lot of gaps. A lot of the time, are you filling those gaps ever with AI, or what do you think is going to be the future there?
AI is going to be massively disruptive. That's about all I can say. I don't even want to try to predict how far we're going to go and what the impact is going to be. But I used to say that an AI can't do what a human does, but I can't say that anymore. I can't. So we're rolling out. We actually rolled it out. It's live now. In partnership with Replicate Labs, we've rolled out a AI coach. And that AI coach is trained on gap selling. It's called Gap Up. So after our clients go through all the training and all our retention packages face to face, they can practice. And so what happens is this Kate gets the feedback from your coach. So he literally talks to her and tells her what they think of you. She reads and watches all of your calls. She goes to the CRM and looks at your opportunities. Then she has a meeting with you. You click a button and it's a person. It's like, it's not a person, but it looks like a person. She goes, "Hey, how you doing, Gabe? What do you want to talk about?" And Gabe said, "I'm struggling with getting things to close." She starts asking you questions like, "Where do you think you're struggling? What's going on?" Then she goes, "So I appreciate that. However, I saw in your training and I see in here you do these things. You're missing this, and I know you have a hard time getting the impact from a gap selling perspective. You spend too much time on the root causes. So what do you think we build a plan that helps get you better at those things?" And he says, "Great." And then behind that, we have all of these skills, which are role plays that she then, watch this, puts it on your calendar, builds a whole learning path, puts each step of the learning path on your calendar. And then when you click on that, let's just say we decided it's hard at getting to the problem. We have a buyer persona that fits your space. We use your pick for your business. That buyer persona, VP of sales, whatever. Then Kate says, "Okay, in this training, you're going to talk to this person and you want to try to get to the problem." So then you hit call, a AI buyer persona comes up and says, "Hey, how you doing?" And you start trying to sell or try to find the problem in a gap selling manner with that person on the phone, which is actually an AI. When you're done, Kate, the AI, scores how well you did that and provides feedback in every category. Then either makes you do it again, or if you pass, sends you to the next learning path. Now think about this. Whose job is on the line right there?
Pretty much everybody's.
Well, I'm not the salesperson. One person in particular. Whose job is that normally to do?
The manager's job, the trainer's
Yes.
job.
Yes. So to that point right now, I would say we have done, with all the glitches and its AI, I would say we're covering about 75% of the manager's job right now. And that's right today.
Right.
Give this another year and a half, 2 years, and then you don't need the sales manager.
Right. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're using it similar.
Yeah.
We're scoring, right? We're listening. We're grading calls. We're doing AI role plays. It's like it's like getting on the treadmill before you work out, right? You got to get ready. You got to get excited. You got to sharpen your the axe every single morning, all right? Or you're gonna have a dull axe and you don't go chop down the trees. So having our SDRs use AI to just do those 10 jumping jacks before they get on the phones is amazing, and it's going to continually evolve, and we're all for it. We're excited about it, but I think you're right. The manager's role is becoming significantly diminished through AI at first, right? And so, what are your thoughts about the trust of it, right? My biggest thing, and I hear this a lot from others, is like, as soon as you find out you're being duped, or as soon as you find out it's AI and they're not upfront about it, like the trust goes right out the window. What's your approach on the trust of AI versus the way some are marketing or using it in the way versus people are upfront and truthful about it? Because you talk about truth in sales all the time. What's your thought on how AI should be delivered in the sales process in that way?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is when AI reaches out to a person. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think that's very situational. So if I'm a cold call and I'm an SDR and I sound as real as our Kate sounds, and my job is just to get an appointment, I'm not as concerned about it. If it's an actual person that's expecting more of a dialogue and there's a lot more trust that's needed. Does you know what I'm saying? There's a lot more credibility that's needed, then you better tell them it's an AI. So the more trust or credibility required, the more you need to tell them. All that being said, AI is getting so good that as we interact with it, we're not going to care. So again, I want you to imagine, at least in the sales world, you're a new rep or even an older rep, whatever, and you've spent the last 2 or 3 years working and engaging with Kate. You've become comfortable with this concept now. She's AI, but she's helped you with your thing. She's been a great job of diagnosing. Now AI is even 6 times better because it's 2 years or 3 years from now. So now a Kate calls you, you don't give a shit. The question you're asking is an introduction question, right? How do you feel about a robot in your home and da-da-da? Oh, well, of all this stuff. But once that robot's been in the home or some people's homes for a while, we're not even going to ask that question anymore. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you're just talking about the adoption barrier right now. That's going to go away.
Very successful. Who should get a hold of you, and where's the best place for them to get a hold of you?
Who should get a hold of me? Anybody that is responsible for sales teams and they're not happy with their win rates, preferably or most likely below 25%. So even if your whole team's at quota and you get less than 25% win rates, you're throwing money away. Anybody's entire team isn't at quota. So if you're at quota, but only 20% are actually at quota and the other 80% are below or, below 80 or more than that. If your average win rates, your average sales cycles are getting longer, deals keep getting pushed every quarter. You're like, geez, that's keeping pushed. Or if your average contract values aren't going up. So in other words, you have all these products or additions, but your salespeople just sell the smallest deal to get the thing going. If you have any of those types of problems and you're responsible for any part of that, that's who should call us. And that's why you should call us.
So how do people get a hold of you? LinkedIn? What's the best way to get a hold of you and your team?
I think LinkedIn or our website, salesgrowth.com, either one. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Keenan, so much for joining us on the podcast. Thank you for all that you're doing for the industry. That you don't stop being you, because we're all huge fans of everything that you do. And we can't wait for our audience to take a listen to this one. It's going to be a banger for sure. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Good. I like to deliver, bro.